DC has been publishing comics since 1938, with some of their characters having existed for over 80 years. What does this mean? That they have had a lot of time to form some questionable partnerships. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the weirdest pairings in DC Comics history as we count down the top 10 weirdest DC Comics hookups. If you love strange romance and odd pairings, be sure to check out our top 10 weirdest Marvel Comics hookups list by clicking over here, and be sure to stick around to the end of this list where I will have some bonus content coming your way. Alright, now let's get counting. Number 10. Superman and Wonder Woman. Some people love this pairing, some people prefer Diana with Batman, some people would rather she was with Steve Trevor, and then there are some of us, like myself, who just think Diana is a strong woman who don't need no man. Superman with Wonder Woman, however, is admittedly not that weird. Both are powerful heroes who respect and care for one another, so what's so wrong with them hooking up and having a relationship? We've seen alternate realities and Elseworld stories where this has worked. Heck, they've even had children together. The moment when DC overstepped, though, it seems, with these two and made it kinda weird was when they made their relationship a permanent fixture of the New 52 main continuity, which honestly just made it kinda strange. Especially when we then were forced to watch them get intimate and talk dirty just about everywhere and almost all the time, because I guess they're both just that invincible and super, and I guess horny? I don't know. Not something we really needed to see, was it? Number 9. Batman and Black Canary. These two are definitely an odd pairing, but of course not the weirdest on the list, more just an unusual ship. They have hooked up plenty in the all-star Batman and Robin comic book universe, but if you're one of those people that prefers to claim that alternate realities don't count, there's still a lot of weird romantic moments we've had from the original Justice League of America days. Now technically this is all considered Earth 1 now, but these issues came out in the late 60s, early 70s, before Earth 1 was really established as, well, being Earth 1. And anyways, call me crazy, but I consider Earth 1 to be pretty close to the main continuity simply because, I mean, it was the main continuity before it was retconned into an alternate reality following Crisis. Anyways, over on Earth 1, back in Justice League of America issue 88, we got a weird love triangle moment featuring Black Canary, who was stuck choosing randomly between Batman and Green Arrow after sharing a passionate kiss previously with the Bats. So the relationship technically goes way back. So far back that it's part of the now alternate reality that was once main continuity pre-Crisis. Number 8. Arsenal and Cheshire. This was a weird one before the New 52, but even after it still stayed as a pretty bizarre relationship that some writers just still love to ship. Arsenal is Roy Harper, originally known as Green Arrow's ward and sidekick Speedy. He was Speedy before Mia Dearden took over. Roy has a pretty weird and deadly relationship on and off with villain and assassin Cheshire. Despite being terrible for one another, however, these two even at one point had a child together, and oddly enough it became the best part of their relationship. Roy's relationship with his daughter Leanne was one of arguably the only good things to come out of this weird romance with Cheshire. However, before New 52 happened, Leanne died, and we got a very strange moment where Roy and Cheshire started blaming one another for the tragedy, and then that fight escalated to a passionate moment between the two. Not a thing usually in real life, by the way. And Roy both wanted to sleep with Cheshire following the loss of their daughter, while also finding it difficult to get intimate due to his intense sadness. We also got a weird moment later on when Cheshire tried to use the death of their daughter to guilt trip Roy into helping her, implying he owed her because their daughter died while in his care. This is some intense and weird stuff. Number 7. Lois Lane and Jonathan Carroll. The fact that this relationship happened I guess made sense, since this is when Lois and Superman's marriage was basically erased in the New 52, but it still was a strange pairing. Superman ended up with Wonder Woman, which was also kinda weird to be honest, though a lot of fans did enjoy that pairing. But Lois got stuck with Jonathan Carroll. Now who is Jonathan? Well, he's basically an obnoxious and forgettable character who at one point also showed up on panel without his nipples. Where did he leave those nipples? I don't know. Their romance only lasted a few issues and ended with Lois erasing some of his memories before leaving him, because I guess she didn't want him calling her ever again. Forget my number. but literally. Number 6. Harley Quinn and the Joker. So these two aren't really a weird romance in terms of understanding just why or how they got together. They're more of a weird romance in the fact that so many people still ship them today, years after they've broken up and after it's really been established that their relationship was extremely toxic for both of them. Now, these two really don't belong together. Of course, unless we're talking about some kind of magical alternate reality like White Knight, which features a reformed version of the Joker, Jack Napier, who only seeks to redeem himself and basically takes on the role of hero once he regains his sanity, continuing to work on his mental health. But we're not talking about that version of their relationship, are we? Even villains don't deserve a relationship as toxic as Harley Quinn and the Joker's typically is. Their relationship is not only toxic, it's abusive and destructive. Still, the world keeps turning and plenty of fans still to this day keep shipping these two and hoping we'll see Harley return to the Joker's side once more. I'm not trying to ship shame, but I just personally find the love for this relationship shocking and confusing considering present continuity. But hey, people gonna ship. People gonna ship. Number 5. Huntress and Robin. This relationship comes to us from Earth number 2, where Huntress is actually the daughter of Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle, as opposed to the more common Huntress that we've come to know as Helena Bertinelli. Bertinelli actually also has had a relationship with Dick Grayson, though admittedly a much less weird one. On Earth 2, Robin and Helena Wayne Huntress are therefore kind of like brother and sister, as both sort of grew up together under the guidance of Bruce, which makes all the flirting and tension between them super awkward. At one point, Dick only makes it more awkward when he acknowledges that he remembers helping to change Helena when she was just a baby. He also at one point breaks into her apartment when she's moved out of the Wayne Manor. Dick surprises Helena with his presence when she emerges from the shower, waiting for her in her apartment. Number 4. Superman and Supergirl. We've actually seen these two get married in the comics, although it was a strange sight. At least those two versions of our heroes were not related. Linda Danvers tied the knot with Silver Age Superman, and Linda Danvers, while Supergirl, was not actually Superman's cousin at all. Kind of a different thing. She's not Kara. Her story was a lot more complex than Kara's was. Linda and Kal-El would even have a child together, Ariella Kent. But although this doesn't seem as weird when given the context, it was also once implied in Action Comics issue number 289 that if Superman could marry anyone, he'd want to marry his cousin Supergirl. At least that's what Superman said when Kara reveals she had been trying to play matchmaker and find Superman a suitable woman to marry. Kal-El reveals that Supergirl is the only woman suited to marrying him, but of course that they cannot marry because on Krypton, cousins aren't allowed to get married. He does acknowledge though that in some countries of Earth that is allowed. Just what are you suggesting, Superman? Why'd you bring that up? He's like, we can't do it, but you know, here there's some places we could do it technically. Number 3. Captain Marvel and Stargirl. So this doesn't inherently sound that bad. Captain Marvel, or Shazam as we now know him, is really Billy Batson, a teenage boy who Stargirl, a teenage superhero, finds herself interested in. For a time the two date, and Stargirl is obviously interested in Billy, not his adult hero form of Shazam / Captain Marvel. However, not everyone who's part of the Justice Society of America knows that Billy Batson is Captain Marvel, which makes things super awkward. Eventually, Jay Garrick as the Flash ends up bringing up his concerns about the relationship with Captain Marvel, who he believes is a grown man dating a 16-year-old girl. Not willing to reveal the secret of his true identity, Billy decides to break things off with Stargirl and leaves the Justice Society. He breaks up with Stargirl while in his Captain Marvel form too, which kinda just makes this whole thing weirder. Number 2. Supergirl and Comet the Super Horse. One of the weirdest DC romances comes to us from the time Supergirl ended up in a relationship with her horse, Comet. Of course, Comet wasn't really just a horse. He was actually originally a centaur named Byron, who Circe attempted to help turn into a full human. Unfortunately, this went awry and resulted in him actually being turned into a full horse instead, though a horse who possessed telepathy, super strength, and immortality at least. In other words, a super horse. Eventually, Comet met a sorcerer who could help to reverse some of the spell that made him a full horse, but only some of it. Comet was then granted the ability to turn human whenever a comet passed, and it was during this time that he sought out and pursued a romantic relationship with Supergirl while in his human form, because no matter his appearance, he would always love her. It's so weird. Number 1. Batman and Batgirl. You might think it's strange that I decided to put this point above Supergirl and her super horse, but honestly, I just find it to be an even more strange ship than that previous one. Even if we're talking outside of the animated Killing Joke film, which literally allowed us to see these two get intimate on screen, well I mean almost. We obviously cut away from the actual deed, because you know there's kids watching and such. We also saw Barbara Gordon, daughter of Commissioner Gordon, Batman's good friend, and Bruce Wayne himself get shipped together really awkwardly in a comic based on the animated Batman Beyond series. In this comic, it's revealed that not only did Barbara and Bruce have an intimate relationship, well, basically Dick was absent, but we also learned that Bruce got her pregnant as well. Yikes. Why did this have to bleed into other things? Why did this have to be a thing at all? Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. Which two characters from DC would you most like to see paired up? Are there any ships you simply cannot stand? Are there any team-ups that you wish also led to something more romantic? Let us know in the comments. And speaking of comments, it's time to turn to some comments from one of our latest videos, Top 10 Alternate Versions of Mewtwo. That's written in kanji, I believe that name, and it possibly translates to Ghouls Also Need Love, I think, maybe? Ghouls Also Need Love, possibly, writes, when the original movie came out, the VHS came with a holographic Mewtwo card on the inside of the case. I still have my tape and the card in its sleeve. Amazing! Now at a cursory glance, when I actually looked up that card, it seems like that card is pretty collectible. It could get you potentially $700 if you find the right buyer, but I'm also assuming you do not want to part with your Mewtwo card because Mewtwo is the best. Tommy Creets responds, this girl keeps bringing it with the outfits. I like clothes. It is known. And that's all the time we have for comments today. Be sure to comment below for a chance to have your thoughts and feels shouted out in a future video. This has been Top 10 Nerd and I'm your host Amanda McKnight. Till next time, you stay nerdy, YouTube.
Harley Quinn has come a long way since her debut in Batman the Animated Series back in 1992 in the episode Joker's Favor. She has become one of the most well-known characters for people only lightly acquainted with comic book lore, and has been adapted many times over, in movies and now her own animated series at the time of this recording. While she may have started off as the Joker's henchwench and girlfriend, she has gone on to have many other love interests. We will be exploring 10 of them today here on Top 10 Nerd. I'm Sasha and these are the top 10 Harley Quinn love interests. Let's get started. Number 10. DEADSHOT. Many changes came over at DC when the New 52 era began in 2011/2012. A lot of things got darker, and that included Harley's relationship with the Joker, which was already pretty dark. However, the Harley initially presented in the New 52 is extremely unstable, homicidal, and devoted to the Joker who tortured her. However, the Joker would vanish for a time after cutting off his own face. Harley would find herself on the Suicide Squad, where she would take up with fellow team member DEADSHOT, and the relationship would be hot and heavy, and the two's madness seemingly complemented each other. You know, until she put the Joker's face on his face, and well, that was kind of a no-go. The relationship was much less quickly handled in the animated movie Batman Assault on Arkham. Number 9. Red Tool. Since being brought into comics, Harley has pretty consistently had her own solo series, which has brought her more awareness amongst fans, which has led to her being featured in many different types of fandom, such as shipping. One big fan favorite pairing for her is with Deadpool. It's known as Harley Pool. Many felt their types of zany just matched and that it would be fun. This was played with in DC canon with the introduction of Red Tool, who is basically Deadpool, or as close as we can get without someone having to be sued. Red Tool would be obsessed with Harley and absolutely devoted to her, while she was more lukewarm, but would use his affection to her advantage. The two would eventually develop a friendly relationship. He worked well enough, even if you weren't aware of where he sprung from. He could stand on his own. Number 8. Wonder Woman. Harley's Little Black Book was a mini-series of small Harley adventures, snippets/team-ups between her and other heroes, and there was a flirtatious element to most of these, which of course included her team-up with Wonder Woman. Harley is established in this tale as having a massive crush on her, as well as admiration for her. She even has like a little shrine. These feelings are not exactly reciprocated. Their team-up dynamic would be Harley being like, this looks like the start of a beautiful friendship, also I love you, with Wonder Woman being more like, thank you next, or no thank you. Over time, like many DC heroes, Wonder Woman has been shown to mellow towards Harley. Number 7. Lobo. Harley's Little Black Book strikes again, seeing her teaming up with the main man himself, Lobo. Harley is in no way put off by all the hyper-macho tude that Lobo's putting out there, and in fact the two's team up for the most part is pretty smooth, and he himself appreciates her more forward advances. Sometimes it's just nice to know where you stand. The two have a fling, or tryst as many outlets insisted on calling it. It's never sad to hear old words. This one was a fun one and done, but did lead to some to have fan theories, like, is Harley the mother of Lobo's daughter? as of 2019. Number 6, Rick Flag. Man, the Suicide Squad. Everybody hooking up. You've got to read the handbook. That's not good for the overall team dynamics. The rebirth era of Harley and even the latter half of the New 52 saw the character mellowing and a tonal shift from the dark instability into a more fun, manic pixie dream girl variety of instability. The rebirth era would see her hooking up with Rick Flag. Since leaving the Joker, Harley's promiscuity has become one of her defining traits. She's a flirt and seemingly interested in most people, and many of them are willing to reciprocate. Rick Flag's a bit more straight-laced than her normal type, but variety is the spice of life. Wonder how DEADSHOT felt about that. Not because of her, because of Rick. Read the Ostrander run, I'm telling you. Number 5, Nightwing. Age in comics is a funny thing. It vacillates, so even as Nightwing ages, many of the people around him don't, which is part of how you end up with a hookup like this. It's happened in comic pages, Grayson, where later Harley would even be able to identify him by kiss, because it's that distinct. However, a bigger and for some more controversial moment came with Batman Harley Quinn the animated movie, which saw Harley Quinn tying Nightwing down to a bed and having her way with him, which the movie is quick to indicate he's into, well, because certain areas are standing to attention. Okay, we still monetized? Okay, good. For some, this was an out of left field moment with questionable implications. For others, a bit of fun. For some, a new possibility of a pairing that hadn't been fully contemplated before. Number 4, Bruce Wayne. Harley's actually been on a date with Bruce Wayne, also depending on how you play the Batman Telltale game, Flirtation City. Harley in the New 52 verse is attracted to Bruce Wayne, just here and there, such as little lines in movies, like in Birds of Prey where she names one of her hyenas after him. If that's not true love, I don't know what is. We get a full date in Harley Quinn Valentine's Special number 1, which for some fans was critical in cementing the fact that Harley doesn't know that Batman and Bruce Wayne are one and the same, which was a theory floating around with some, especially when she notes his jaw early on in Batman the Animated Series. Number 3, Batman. Hey, if she doesn't know who he is, he counts as 2 separate people. Harley is drawn to the persona of the Bat as well. I mean, makes sense, she does tend to be drawn to danger and excitement. There's also something appealing about it to fans too. He's essentially the antithesis of the Joker, and I mean, the Joker's head would explode. Who would he be jealous of? Well, that's up to you. It's your choice. Harley and Batman have had a flirtation since the animated series. She kisses him twice in Harley's Holiday after he's particularly sweet to her. And Batman has a soft spot for her. Not quite a pity spot, but a bit of understanding. Since then, it's appeared in main canon, in Elseworlds, just everywhere. Batquin. Some people wish it was a thing. Number 2, the Joker. I know, the Joker at number 2, the Scandal. This is the love interest who started it all. Harley would literally not exist were it not for the Joker. He is her starting point. She has of course become firmly established and become nuanced, though some of that has been stripped back in favor of a more traditional power fantasy. This couple is iconic and dark and twisted, which doesn't have to be something to be afraid of or shy away from, though some do for fear of glamorization or romanticization. But something can be explored and not glorified, and really no matter what you do, you can't control how someone is going to view something. At this point, Harley has moved on from her puddin', and he from her, but it was still an illuminating chapter in her character, and a strong, necessary one. Every character starts somewhere. Number 1, Poison Ivy. Now, Poison Ivy and Harley's relationship has actually been hinted at for quite some time, but you know, the 90s, you gotta keep some things subtext. I mean, who doesn't hang out with their friends without pants? That's what friendship is all about. Over time, these two's relationship would become more and more explicit, and also gain some cred with fans as being a less toxic one than her and the Joker, and B, also be more important for representation. It has gone through many phases. Marriage in alternate universes, or on again off again in the main verse. Surprisingly thoughtful in her animated show, not because of anything particular, but just the overall comedic tone that show has. Sometimes it gets pretty deep. For some, this is their endgame couple, but with Harley on the prowl, that remains to be seen. So those were 10 Harley Quinn love interests. Were there any that I missed out on that you wish I'd mentioned? If so, let me know down below. I'm Sasha, and thanks so much for watching Top 10 Nerd. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and hit the bell notifications so that you never miss a vid.
If there is anything I have learned from Batman's long romantic history, it's that being a dark and mysterious vigilante usually leads you to making bad relationship choices. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. My name is Amanda McKnight. I'm dressed up as Ruby Roundhouse from Jumanji 2 in honor of Halloween, and I will be your host for this list where we talk about some of the better relationship choices that Bruce Wayne has made. Keyword there being some, because honestly, even when it comes to the superhero ones, not even all of them are great. Today we'll be counting down the top 10 superheroes Batman has hooked up with. So get ready to toss those batarangs of love, and be sure to stick around to the end of this video where I have some bonus content coming your way. Alright, let's get counting. Number 10, Batgirl. So I really did not want to include Batgirl on this list, but Batman seems to have a bit of an issue when it comes to dating superheroes. He seems to be more attracted to ladies with a criminal connection, most of them having one unbeknownst to him. For a world-renowned detective, you'd really think he would be better at picking up on that. I feel like he and Drake could bond over all the bad choices they have made when it comes to their romantic lives. Speaking of not so great choices, Batgirl and Batman had a thing in the animated version of The Killing Joke and in the Batman Beyond comic universe. While the whole idea of this relationship really creeps me out for a lot of reasons, I will say that Batgirl is definitely just an all-around great superhero, so for that reason, I allowed her to make the cut. What happened between Bruce and Barbara? Well, in the animated film The Killing Joke, they sleep together on a roof after having a fight that gets physical in more ways than one. Because yeah, apparently that is what the comic book was missing. In the Batman Beyond comic book universe, the two sleep together and Bruce gets Barbara pregnant while Dick Grayson is out of town. So yeah, relationship? Not so great. But Barbara Gordon herself? Pretty great. Number 9. Chandra Kinsolving. Chandra is a meta-human who originally went by Sandra Asplin. She and her brother were both adopted and grew up abused by their father until one day they used their powers to, well, they accidentally killed him. She ended up running away from home and grew up to become a psychotherapist. Her abilities allow her to heal or kill those she comes into physical contact with. She has been called upon to help heal Bruce a few times, including after his spine was broken by Bane. During her time as his healer and personal physician, Chandra developed feelings for Bruce and he for her. She enjoyed how mysterious he was, and the two developed a romance. Chandra would later lose her mind after accidentally killing her brother while in a drug-induced, confused childlike state. Her mentality reverted to that of a child. Bruce took it upon himself to make sure she was taken care of, buying a home for her and staffing it with medical personnel to look after Chandra for the rest of her days. So sweet. Number 8. Sasha Bordeaux. Do you remember the movie Bodyguard with Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner? That is this kind of romance. Sasha was hired as Bruce Wayne's bodyguard against his wishes. Despite him trying to avoid her, Sasha was really good at her job, making it hard for Bruce to shake her. In fact, she was so good she ended up discovering that Bruce Wayne was Batman. Unable to fire her because of this, Bruce trained with her, and eventually she joined him on his patrols. She quickly fell in love with him, despite the fact that he was busy dating other women. After he and Sasha are framed with the murder of his girlfriend, Vesper Fairchild, they become closer and have a brief romance. Unfortunately for Sasha, Batman does not end up always loving her, nor does he even sing the song I Will Always Love You to her, which is unfortunate because that would be hilarious. He sang for Zatanna. Number 7. Batwoman. That's right, before we had the Kate Kane of today, now played by Ruby Rose in the CW series, and one of the most prominent LGBTQ+ characters in the DC universe, I even keep an inspirational drawing of her at my desk, no joke. We had Kathy Kane. Oddly enough, Kathy Kane and her niece Betty Kane were actually designed as a female version of the dynamic duo Batman and Robin and created to be their love interests. In fact, their creation was a result of homophobia, as a Batman and Robin series had people questioning the sexuality and relationship between Batman and Robin. It wasn't until the New 52 that Kathy was reintroduced as Kate Kane, Batman's lesbian cousin and vigilante in her own right, who also came from a wealthy family and had a militaristic upbringing. Number 6. Becca. Becca was Hamon's daughter. She grew up on Apocalypse where Hamon plotted to overthrow Darkseid, keeping his daughter a secret to protect her. She eventually fell in love with Orion, Darkseid's son, but during a run-in with Batman where she helped to save Superman from DEADSHOT on the planet Tartarus, she found herself attracted to the Dark Knight. Despite their brief romance, Becca decided to go back to Orion and the two parted ways. Also, Becca's fine. Number 5. Phantasm. Andrea Beaumont becomes Phantasm after the death of her father in the animated universe. Bruce and her have a relationship before she adopts the vigilante mantle, however. The two fall in love and he even considers giving up his work as Batman to be with her and find happiness. Bruce proposes and Andrea accepts, but her father pulls her away from Bruce and into hiding with him when his mob ties become treacherous. Despite their efforts, Carl Beaumont, Andrea's father, is found and killed, and Andrea seeks to avenge his death, becoming Phantasm. Her and Bruce don't end up staying together despite discovering that they are both vigilantes. See, they both follow sort of a different moral code, which leads them to part ways. Number 4. Black Canary. Back in the Silver Age of comics, Batman and Canary share a few romantic moments, and even almost had a full relationship. But ultimately she ended up choosing Oliver Queen, Green Arrow, over him. In fact, the two even had a dalliance while she was with Oliver Queen. Ooh, I'm surprised she didn't end up leaving Green Arrow actually. He actually spent a lot of time bossing her around and telling her what to do, but then again, that was often the struggle of most superheroines in the Silver Age. This weird love triangle has been revisited a few times in modern comics as well, with Batman and Black Canary sharing even more racy kisses and embraces, but this time on rooftops instead of in the JLA space satellite. Number 3. Zatanna Zatara. Bruce and Zatanna were childhood friends who came to truly care for one another. Bruce even refers to Zatanna affectionately as Z. Although the two have had their ups and downs, like when Zatanna altered Batman's memories, they are always there for one another when the other calls upon them. After saving Zatanna from the Joker, the two spend the night together and Zatanna asks why they aren't a thing. Bruce confesses that although he has feelings for her and would like to have a relationship with her, he cannot do so as he does not want to expose her to the darkness of his world. Such a Batman answer. Come on, Bruce. I'm pretty sure the magical Zatanna could handle it. She could even bring some light into the darkness maybe. Just conjure it up. Number 2. Wonder Woman. While this romance is mostly based off of fan shipping and in-comic flirting, there have been a few moments where fans were left questioning what was really going on between these two. Both Batman and Wonder Woman, or Wonder Bat as some call them, often end up deciding they are better as friends whenever attempting to come to terms with their true feelings for one another. Still, this hasn't stopped them from stealing a few kisses every now and then. In some cases, we've also seen them in cliffhanger situations where we are forced to wonder what truly happened in the time they have spent together outside of the panels. Though it has never been confirmed that they have dated or slept together, still, if you want to count kissing and whatever could be happening off panel as a hookup, then this would definitely be high up on the list. Batman and Wonder Woman definitely care very much for each other and would make one heck of a power couple, especially with Wonder Woman because she's quite a bit more powerful than Batman, so it's pretty awesome. Number 1. Catwoman. Kind of the ultimate match for Batman, am I right? Sure, you may say, but Amanda, Catwoman is not a hero, she's a criminal. But the truth is, she really kind of rides the line of being both. She may be a thief, but she often steals for the benefit of others. She may work alongside villains, but she usually ends up double-crossing them, often to help Batman. Remember when she joined the Gotham City Sirens just to spy on them for Bruce? Selina Kyle and Bruce Wayne even almost made it to the altar. In fact, it was Selina's love of Bruce that prevented the two from wedding, fearing that their marriage would lead him to become truly happy and thereby destroy who he was, believing that Bruce needed his misery in order to be who he is. At least that's what she tells Bruce in a love letter. Although the two didn't end up tying the knot in the end, they still have managed an on and off again love affair for over 80 years in the comics, which remains impressive, to say the least. Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. I hope you enjoyed this list. Who is your favorite superhero or even supervillain that Batman has dated? Would you like us to create a list about the criminals that Batman has dated? Spoiler alert, there's a lot. Like seriously, he really needs to start doing background checks on some of these ladies. Let us know your thoughts and feels in the comments below, and if you think there's a superhero we may have missed. Speaking of comments, it's time for that bonus content as we turn to some comments from one of my latest videos, Top 10 Superhero Couples Who Went Too Far, Part 3. Carrie7 comments, has Talia and Jason Todd been done yet? Because ew. I don't believe we mentioned them yet, surprisingly. But the relationship coming out of pure spite for Batman is pretty gross. Also, what is the age difference there? Maybe we'll see that one in a part 4. Drew Sutton writes, good list. I tease you about one of your word pronunciations, but we don't know each other. Without that context, teasing is just trolling. I like that saying, Drew. And you're right, without that context, teasing can easily be perceived as trolling on the internet. I think I know the word you mean though. Was it banished or banished, as I said? That was a Shakespeare reference, as the relationship I was talking about between Gambit and Belladonna is an obvious nod to Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. Fun fact, it is sometimes pronounced banished in Shakespeare in order to maintain the iambic pentameter. Sorry, theater and literature nerd over here. Sorry about that. Be sure to comment below for a chance to be featured in a future video. And while you're on your way down there, remember to like, share, sub, and ring our bell as well. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight / Ruby Roundhouse, reminding you to stay nerdy, YouTube.
You would think that being a superhero would really put a damper on your love life. Well, in a lot of cases you would actually be right. But that hasn't really stopped good old Bruce Wayne. Even though sometimes it doesn't end well, Bruce has had a lot of relationships over the years. And that, my friends, is what we are going to talk about today. Hey everyone, what is up? Welcome to Top 10 Nerd. I'm your host, David Rath, and today we are going to be talking about the top 10 Batman love interests. Now, if you enjoyed this video, or if you love this video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe to Top 10 Nerds so you are always the first to know whenever we post a new nerdy video. Now, with all that being said, let's dive in. Number 10, Barbara Gordon. So this one has a weird and complicated history with fans. You see, it all started during Batman Beyond, which is an amazing animated series. If you haven't seen it, watch that right now. It was hinted that Bruce and Barbara, aka Batgirl, had a romantic past. Fans really didn't know how to think about that, but they just kind of let it slide, because you know, what else? But didn't stop there. In the animated film adaptation of the comic book The Killing Joke, the two took their relationship to the next level. Now, a lot of fans just attribute this relationship to Bruce Timm, who was the creator of the whole, DCAU, DC Animated Universe, and he was a producer on the Killing Joke animated film. For some reason, he just really wanted to see those characters together. Regardless, I just don't think that this is a relationship that fans will ever really get on board with. But it had to be on the list. Number 9, Chase Meridian. Chase is a psychologist and was introduced in the film Batman Forever. She was played by Nicole Kidman when Val Kilmer was Batman. Now, regardless of what you think of this film, one of the things that everyone agrees on is that they really enjoyed Chase. She had a really interesting and complex relationship with both Bruce and Batman. She eventually figured out, that the two were the same person. She only appeared in one film, but in 2013 she did make her debut in the comics. It would have been interesting to see where they would have taken her as a character and her relationship with Bruce, but unfortunately that never ended up happening. Batman and Robin ended up happening, and we all know how that turned out. Number 8, Talia al Ghul. This is probably one of the more complex relationships of Batman's career, if you could even call it a relationship at all. So Batman has never trusted the League of Assassins. That's not, new information. But he has tried to work with Talia from time to time. But the thing is, Talia wanted a kid. In her eyes, a kid with Batman would be the perfect combination. They ended up having a kid together, Damian Wayne. Although it's kind of implied that she drugged Batman and that's how Damian happened. I think all fans agree that this is definitely not one of Bruce's healthiest relationships. Number 7, Wonder Woman. Sometimes office romances happen, even with superheroes. That is what happened here. You see, Batman and Wonder Woman are both founding members of the Justice League, and the two of them spend a lot of time together, so it should come as no surprise that they ended up dating just for a little bit. I mean, they even kissed during the Justice League animated cartoon. And there's definitely some flirtation between Bruce and Diana in the DCEU. I mean, we saw it briefly in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, and we didn't really see it in the theatrical release Justice League film. I mean, there were hints of it, but we'll probably see a lot more of it in, the Snyder Cut, or Zack Snyder's Justice League as it's now called. But only time will tell with that one. Number 6, Silver St. Cloud. Silver actually has a really interesting history with Bruce. They both have money, and that's how the two of them met. They started dating, and eventually, she found out Bruce was Batman, which seems to be a trend here. And that is actually why it ended. Silver didn't want to see something that happen to Bruce. If she was with him, she would always have to worry that, he would never come home at night. And that is something she just didn't want to do. Which automatically makes this different than a lot of other people on the list. I wonder if Silver will end up making her way into Matt Reeves' new Batman trilogy. I mean, he has a lot of other characters coming in, but this one would be, kind of something interesting and new. Number 5, Poison Ivy. So lots of people can't resist Poison Ivy. Partly because she can make men fall in love with her with this spell. And that is exactly what happened with Batman. I mean, can you really see Batman just dating her? They have a completely different view on everything. So it wouldn't really work. I mean, and it's not only Batman she has made fall in love with her. It's also Superman as well. So she can literally make anyone fall in love with her. Unless you have those fake lips on like a Batman and Robin, then you're good. Just everyone get some of those fake lips. Because Batman and Robin teaches us a lot. Number 4, SASHA Bordeaux. SASHA was actually Bruce Wayne's former bodyguard. Yeah, even Bruce Wayne needs a bodyguard, guys. She was actually sentenced to Blackgate after her and Bruce were accused of killing Vesper Fairchild, which they actually didn't. But she ended up finding out who Bruce Wayne was, and the two of them actually trained together on multiple occasions. She wanted to become a vigilante, and she ended up going out with Batman to fight crime. Their relationship didn't really last long, but Even when she did go to prison, she never ended up giving Bruce his identity, which instantly shows you just how much she cares for him. Number 3, Vicki Vale. Vicki Vale is one of Batman's oldest relationships. She's also one of the more famous ones because she was the one to make her debut in Tim Burton's 1989 film, Batman, starring Michael Keaton, which was a massive success. Vicki is a reporter that works for the Gotham Gazette. Like many others on this list, they weren't together long, but Vicki holds a special place in a lot of Batman's fans' hearts for being the first one to debut on the big screen. She didn't appear in other movies, but it was a big deal when she first showed up in the film. Number 2, Rachel Dawes. Like Chase Meridian, Rachel was first created for the films. Rachel made her debut in Batman Begins, where she was actually played by Katie Holmes, but then she was recasted in The Dark Knight with Maggie Gyllenhaal, which, is the version that people remember more. Rachel has become one of The Dark Knight's most famous love interests because both films she appeared in are considered to be Batman's best films. And she was a childhood friend of Bruce who found out, eventually he was Batman. But they couldn't be together until the world didn't need Batman anymore. She then went on, started dating Harvey Dent during The Dark Knight, and ultimately chose to be with him before, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, she got killed by the Joker. It was a tragic end to their love story because Bruce was ready to give up everything for her. But Rachel will always remain one of his most famous loves, even though, it was kind of brief and ended really badly. Number 1, Catwoman. Was there ever any doubt? Come on, guys. I think everyone predicted this. I think everyone knew that Selena Kyle was going to be number 1 on this list. Her romance with Batman is famous. The two of them have had an on and off again relationship for such a long time and shared a bond that you just don't see with anyone else. They were going to get married, guys. They were going to get married, but Selena left Bruce at the altar saying that he couldn't be Batman and be happy, so she had to leave, which left fans devastated. Come on! Can Bruce ever catch a break? Probably not. Although, some are still holding out hope that they will be together again, and maybe Bruce will finally be happy. Who knows? But it seems like the writers don't want to take him in that general direction because they just want to keep pushing a mopey Batman, which is still a cool version of Batman, but come on. He could be happy. Bruce can be happy, guys. Alright, there you have it, guys. Top 10 Batman love interests. What does your list look like? Let us know down in those comments below. And if you happen to enjoy this video, hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe to Top 10 Nerds so you never miss one nerdy video. It's that simple. You hit subscribe, you get a little notification when we post a new video, and you're always ready. Boom. Easy. I'm your host, David Raff, and thank you guys so much for watching.
Welcome back, Nerd Squad, to Top 10 Nerd. I'm your host, Johnny Rogers, and if you happen to be new here, we put out daily content on all things nerdy, so if you're down with that, then tap subscribe to see more. The new DC Titans show is doing its best to be the standalone, oh-so-edgy version of the lovable Teen Titans characters, and for today's video, we'll be highlighting a few of them from the comic book days and a few from the animated show as well. Our main focus will be to ship a variety of superheroes for the new show based on their history together throughout the wonderful world of DC. Make sure you guys stay all the way until the end of this video because I will have bonus content for you, so stay tuned. Also, leave us a comment down below with who your favorite Teen Titan member is, and while you ponder that, let's jump into today's list of the top 10 romances in Titans that we want to see. In at number 10, Supergirl and Power Boy. We know this wasn't the most functional of relationships when it comes to the Teen Titans, but we still would love to see this story play out. Shortly after Supergirl's resurrection in 2004, she had been locked under the control of Darkseid and held as a prisoner on Apokolips. This is where Darkseid's minion Power Boy first fell in love. When Supergirl finally returned to Earth, Power Boy stalked her and actually ended up joining the Titans just to be a little bit closer. The two did begin a pretty successful relationship until Power Boy's dark side began to poke its ugly head into the middle of it. In at number 9, Nightwing and Mirage. If you've been watching Titans on Netflix, you'll know that Nightwing, aka Dick Grayson, has already began to build a close relationship with Starfire. For the most part, everyone has been pretty supportive of this, and the same goes when it comes to the comic book history, but a noteworthy exception would be Mirage. Mirage comes to Earth from a desolate alternative future, and during her time travel adventure to stop this future from happening, she falls in love with Grayson. Mirage though didn't really care for this whole Grace and Starfire relationship, and when it comes to the comic book world, she's a little bit manipulative. But if you look at it from a different perspective, perhaps her intentions are actually good. In the comic books, she knows that Nightwing would never just leave Starfire to be with her, so instead she disguises herself as Starfire. In doing so, Nightwing can't even tell the difference, which really says more about Dick Grayson than anything else. In at number 8, AQUALAD and TULA. TULA, also known as Aqua Girl, makes this romance a must-see for us. It just makes sense that the two water heroes finally make it happen on Titans, especially with the introduction of AQUALAD to the show. In terms of comic book history that these two share, TULA was one of the many female characters that became heroes to impress a male hero. For TULA though, not only did she impress her crush AQUALAD, but she remained as a true hero throughout. The two even fought together for many years both on land and by sea, so that combined with their shared origins would be a perfect pairing indeed. In at number 7, NARK and Lilith Clay. With all the dysfunctional, obvious, and wanted romances that we want to see, we would be remiss not to toss an odd couple into the mix. NARK and Lilith Clay fit that bill to a T. First and foremost, you have NARK, this caveman that was able to survive being frozen in ice, all thanks to a magic meteor jammed into his chesticle. Then you have Lilith, the telepath, and although this pairing has been retconned over the years during the post-Crisis on Infinite Earths, this relationship proved its worth. During that time, NARK could sense that these scientists were going to disrupt his resting place, so using what mental energy he had, he was able to finally ask Lilith for help. After the Titans were able to save him, their relationship never really had time to get off the ground. You see, NARK was slowly dying, and for the most part, he would have to communicate telepathically with Lilith. For the show Titans though, they can take their time to tell this story, which would just be great to see. In at number 6, HERALD and BUMBLEBEE. This is another sweet romance that we would believe would be a perfect pairing for Titans to pick up. Mal Duncan, aka HERALD, never felt like one of the Titans. He didn't have a cool costume, and he didn't even have special powers. Although when he started dating Karen Beecher, she didn't want him to feel left out, so she actually built him the Gabriel horn, allowing HERALD to do things far beyond his human capacity. With this new gift, he was able to create wormholes and even cross dimensions. Talk about Girlfriend of the Year award, man. And after creating the Bumblebee costume for herself because she's a strong, independent woman, the two joined forces and remained with the Titans for quite some time. Even after retiring from the team, the two got married and enjoyed a normal life together. How sweet. Probably not the best for TV, but still, how sweet. In at number 5, TERRA and Beast Boy. Leaning on the more interesting side would be getting to see the romance that took place between the changeling Beast Boy and his Earth-controlling teammate TERRA. Not all of these pairings will end well, but regardless, this is a romance that we definitely want to see. You see, Beast Boy was madly in love with his new teammate, but it turned out that TERRA didn't feel the same way. In fact, she didn't have any mutual feelings for any of the Titans. Turns out her entire plan was just to get close enough to the Titans so that she could destroy them. Unfortunately, this included duping the gullible Beast Boy into quickly falling in love with her. Needless to say, when all was said and done, Beast Boy was pretty beat up over it. Don't worry though, it will be on to the next one for Beast Boy later in this list. In at number 4, Raven and Kid Flash. We're not too sure how they could work this into the mix of the storyline that they've already built for the show Titans, but it would definitely be a cool thing to see. In the Teen Titans show, Raven had arrived on Earth, and the Titans were actually no longer together. Hoping to reform the team in time to stop her evil father from invading, she kinda had to lie a little bit. In comes Kid Flash, who had fallen in love with Raven and really stuck his neck out there to help her get the team back together. However, Kid Flash soon realized that she was only interested in him so that he would help her. Not a great way to start off a relationship, but a type of romance that would make for great television. In at number 3, Donna Troy and Green Lantern. For starters, both Donna and Kyle Rayner were in some pretty famous comic book relationships, but when those didn't pan out, they found each other. Both have been dealing with the pretty traumatic end to their respective relationships, which included the murder of Alex DeWitt, leading to the popular phrase women in refrigerators. Although their romance was a short-lived one, the couple did end up becoming good friends later on. Plus, how great would it be to see Titans play out the part of the relationship where evil Mary Marvel uses Kyle as a blunt weapon to beat up Donna? You know what? Now that I say that out loud, probably not a good idea. That scene would probably get them canceled. Okay, we want to see this relationship, just leave that part from Countdown out, okay? In at number 2, Raven and Beast Boy. Ever heard the saying opposites attract? Well, there is no more suiting couple to embody this statement than the gloomy Raven and cheerful Beast Boy. Although the two never really had that much time together in the comic books, thanks to the Teen Titans cartoon, the fandom has become huge. Back in 2003, they really started to gain traction as a couple amongst fans who truly love the genuine mix of interactions between their characters. With their characters already being established in the Netflix show Titans, this pairing would still work and make for a great on-screen romance, as long as Raven doesn't break Beast Boy's heart like TERRA did, of course. Last but not least, in our number 1 spot, Wonder Girl and Superboy, coming full circle. After Donna Troy outgrew the name, Cassie Sandsmark took on the role of Wonder Girl. As such, she became a key player and critical member for the Titans. Much like Donna Troy though, she too became hopelessly in love with one of her teammates. That teammate was the ever so arrogant Superman clone known as Superboy. And after some time had passed, Superboy grew to also have feelings for Wonder Girl, but like many of the couples we're shipping, it all came to an end. After just one night of romance between the two, Superboy gave up his life to save the world. This is a much needed romance for the show in our humble opinion, because it has it all. Desperate passion meets tragic ending, all to save the world and the one he loves. Say it with me, aww. And that has been the top 10 romances in Titans that we want to see. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, show us some love by tapping that like and subscribe button. Plus, leave us a comment down below with your thoughts on this list. And for more videos like this one, all you gotta do is click that playlist on the screen. From Top 10 Nerd, I'm Johnny Rogers. Until next time, take care.